we're on. My friend, it's really a huge honor to have you on the show. Last time we met in person, it's a while ago. It was at the Rock Fest when you guys play with the Love One. You
Oh
know,
wow, yeah, that was a while ago.
yeah, and because of me, you got late on stage because Chuck wanted to do a photo, and I was maybe you should go on stage and we do it after. And it was like, no, let's do it now. And then your tour manager will like looking at me, dude, they're gonna have to skip a song because of you. It's like, oh. So, my friend, it's an honor to have you back on Prescription Punk Rock. For people that don't recognize you, who the hell are you, man?
I'm Jason Black from Hot Water Music.
Jason, having you on the show, it's because there's new stuff coming up. And, I know the career of Upwater Music is such something unique. You guys always push yourself. And even when it gets harder, it's like you always get out of that more stronger. And I think that record represents everything you went through. And it's a kind of masterpiece, It's crazy how solid the songs are and how tired you are after all those years. So, is it more easy now to do a record than back in the days with the experience?
Yes and excuse me. Yes and no. I mean, this one was pretty tricky because we started. We started talking about writing it pretty much right when the pandemic started. So that obviously, played a role in how things went. But it's you never really know what's going to happen until you get to the studio. I guess is kind of how I would say that. Like, you can be as prepared as you want, and then it's sort of like, I guess it's kind of an easier way to put it would be like you show up with all of your songs or whatever, and you think like this song is going to be the best song on the record. It's going to be the first song, and it ends up being the worst thing you fucking wrote, and it sucks now that you've recorded it. So I mean, I feel like that's just kind of how records tend to go anyway, or can go, is that they're very unpredictable when you're doing them, because everything sort of informs everything else. So it was a lot of fun to make the record, but it was also really hard, and on different, for all kinds of reasons. And but that said, I'm also super happy with the. I'm very happy with the record. I think we all are. So going through what we went through to get there was definitely worth it. And I feel like every record's hard to make because you're always like, I can kind of tell you who makes it. Not like, I'm not trying to call anyone out, but if you play me a bunch of records by a band, I can tell you which ones they didn't try as hard on as which ones they didn't. Just because you can there is no way to like escape phoning it in. Like, even if it feels like you can get a little bit of like, and this is I mean, like, there are definitely in retrospect things that I would look at personally and be like, we didn't try as hard as we should have on whatever. Now, I don't think that we did that on purpose, obviously, and it was whatever the circumstances were at that time is kind of how it happened. But you get a little breath of like, oh, so and so has new songs out, and everyone's really excited. But then like 2 weeks after that, everyone's like, these are boring. Like, so you kind of have to, I feel like more so than ever before, like the longer we're a band, we really have to push it because it's just like I can't take, there's a lot of bands that I love that have huge discographies. Perfect example, just because I was thinking of it the other day. Like, I listened to the new AC/DC record and it's really good because they're all really good. But I'm still going to put Black and Black, I'm still going to go to the classic when I put it on. So it's like you kind of have to, maybe that's a bad example because they can't reinvent themselves. But you know what I'm saying? You need to be terrible. You have to really like leave it all on the table every time you make a record, and not just in the session, but also in writing. And so that's kind of, it's a lot of moving parts. So the long answer to your question is no, it is not easier. It's easier in the way that we know what we're doing more with like recording and technology and sounds and shit like that. But as far as getting good songs, it's definitely just as hard as it's always been.
Yeah, and it's something that people realize more now, the process of recording, how hard it is. And it's not easy to write good songs. So, and it's incredible because, yeah, the example of ECDC is pretty decent. And I mean, I think that after Black in Black and a couple of other records, they got lost in the process of it's work. We get in studio, we get on tour, and it's like the routine. And I think you lost yourself in the routine. That's why there's really strong records and records that maybe less have less good songs in it. But
Mhm.
I think that for a band to enter in the studio with that mentality and that energy that you got through the first two or three records, it's something hard to achieve. But I
It
think you did.
is.
I think
Yeah.
that what happened with the last CCDC was they broke up and Axel came in and then Brian came back. And I think that's how they got the energy of the beginning. It was a new
Mhm.
start for them. They're at an age, they know they're most of it that the career is done. They have
Totally. Yeah.
they take the best of it, and I think that's what you did with the last record.
Thanks. I mean, I think that makes sense. And it is because you do get caught in this like make a record go on tour, make a record go on tour, make a record go on tour. And I think that we are fairly lucky in that we don't do the band for a living. So it isn't make a record go on tour. It can end up that way, but what we were trying to do is like, let's make a record because it's going to be really good or because we really want to, not because like we need to do this for whatever other reason. I think that there's enough, we have put enough songs out into the world that like we shouldn't put any more out unless they're going to be real good.
Another thing that is crazy is when you started up, you arrived with a song, a sound that nobody had back in the days. Punk rock was not in that direction. It was really more melodic, what we call skate punk today. But you didn't do that. You choose another path. And there's a lot of style involved in that water music. Maybe like the Clash, taking everything that we love and put it with our own energy and our own personality. But now, fast forward, people, there was a lot of band that you influence over the years, and that song is more recognized, and people know that. And I think that's a good thing because punk have changed a lot, and now people are more into what you're doing now. So I think it's why the fan base just getting grower every fucking album.
I mean, I hope so. And that definitely is how it felt when we started. We didn't really, I mean, I feel like we still carry this with us, but like we didn't fit in anywhere. Um, you know, like we didn't fit in with ska bands or like pop punk bands or skate punk bands or whatever. The only place we kind of, I think the place that accepted us the most was hardcore bands. Um, I don't know why.
Which
And that's whatever. I love hardcore, so I don't have a problem with that. But it's definitely, I agree with you where punk has definitely brought it and kind of encompassed a lot of different styles of music now, which is cool. And I think the Clash is a really good touchstone for that because it's funny how many people love that band, but then make fun of things that sound just like the Clash because it's not fucking Clash. You know what I mean? It's just like, dude, they can't like. So they definitely, they were fans of music as we are too, like at large.
Yeah, and that's another thing because there's a lot of band out there that are not listening to punk rock or what they're playing anymore. They're into something else, which is normal. We grow up. When you start a band at 15 or 20, you don't have the same mentality 20 years, 30 years later. So uh,
Totally.
it's interesting to see that people are way more open minded. And I think that if we take something positive about the pandemic, people got more time, so they were listening way more music. And I think that
Mhm.
it's just getting more open and open. And the subgenre is not important anymore for many people. Like, oh, you are a rock, bluesgrass, punk band. You don't fit with it. Doesn't matter now, I think.
I agree. I agree.
And that's why, back in the days, I've got really interesting in what you were doing. I was like, man, it's so original. Like, there's no one sounding like that. And now I think people looking for that. So, in a way, it's a good thing that you open those doors really soon, because now that's what people will looking for. Because we need a new generation of headline. We need a new generation of band. Not that the older ones should quit, but it's just, it's always been like that.
It's true. It's true. And I like, I mean, I very much agree with you on that. And I do think like the last maybe 5 or 10, God, I don't even know how many years, more recently than when we were playing, there are new bands coming up that I think are doing really cool stuff. And they're not even new, but just like bands that are starting to become like well known that I think are doing really cool things. And I, and kind of pushing the boundaries. And I hope it continues that way for sure.
Yeah, and people are in need of shows. It's it's low right now. There's show happening. Not in Quebec. We're gonna have show back in a week, because we got shows. They open like venues at 50%.
Mm-hmm.
Around, I think, maybe May last year. But they close it down around November. So it's we're gonna get back again to it. And I think that people would just want to have fun and just like no bullshit anymore. Maybe like
Yeah.
less whining.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Because people were way too more critics, and I'm sure it happened to you, like people whining, they didn't play that song. It's a matter of being surrounded with people that you love and have the same passion and just having fun.
Yeah, it is. I agree. And there's always critics. I mean, it's like that. I find that not even just in music, like anything, it's a lot easier to find people having negative things. When people like something, they don't necessarily like write a review. Like if most people go to a restaurant and it's awesome, they don't necessarily like go home and write a review. But if they go and it sucks, fucking forget it. They're going on for days. So it's like, or they don't like it, not even if it sucks. So that's kind of, there's a little bit of, I mean, that definitely factors into everything. And like, I don't know, it, it never feels good to have someone say something that you're doing isn't what they wanted or isn't good or whatever, but it's kind of like you have to be okay with that if you're going to do anything artistic. Um, and I also am just not like, I don't know, there's enough negativity in the world that we don't need to like invite that into, kind of our program is if you don't like what we're doing, then just don't show up. It's fine. Like, it's no big deal.
You're so right. You can, I used to review records, and I did that a lot, but I mostly review records that I enjoy because I wanted to say something positive, the
Yeah.
PM, positive mental attitude. And I think that people love it, and when I dislike something, most of the time I don't talk about it. I'm not a musician. Who am I to critic something that I'm not doing? But I think if you do it really intelligently and just put something negative and positive, it's just, it can bring something to the band. But outside that, people are just whining too much on social media. I think that, like I said, the point is getting back to just having fun. Like you said, that's what you did with the new records. You had fun. It was art, but there was fun behind that, and that's what
Mhm.
I felt when I listened to the new song.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we're really, I think we accomplished everything that we set out to do. And so I'm glad that it's translating that way to listening when you listen to it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's crazy when you think about it. Actually, do you remember your first show with Hot Water Music?
I do. Um, it's funny because I remember that one. And I kind of remember our second show too. I mean, I don't like, I actually remember our first show. Our second show, I remember like when it happened and where it happened. I don't really remember playing it so much. It's also been a long time, but yeah, I definitely remember our first show, which is crazy. It was not that far from my house. But yeah, I don't know. It's all in there somewhere. Now, a lot of the between that show and now, people ask me, "Do you remember this show?" Like, I will actually forget like a band that we played 5 shows with or something like that. Not even like just because I'm not super social. I'm a little like socially awkward, and it just like it also depends. I think sometimes people don't realize it's like we'll go play like 4 or 5 shows with. I mean, we always play shows with bands that we want to play shows with. It's like that, you know, we like these bands and let's play shows together. But like, I could be busy enough that I don't ever like meet one person from a band or something like for the whole week, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that guy was in the, you know, and it just is how it is. It's tough to keep up with. I always try to like, you know, be in the moment, but it's not easy. There's a lot going on all the time for sure. And more so the older that everyone gets, like we all have jobs and we all have families. So there's a lot of like doing kind of normal life stuff until the show instead of like back in the day where it was like, let's hang out and go around town and do, you know, all that kind of stuff. Not so much these days.
Yeah, we're getting old. The party are less there now,
Yeah.
and that's another thing that a lot of fans don't get. You know, a lot of musicians, they're there to play music, and a lot are not social person. It's not because they don't want. It's they're born like that, and it's normal. I'm a really shy person too in normal life. You know, when I go to Walmart or whatever, sometimes I see people I know. You know, I try to. I don't want to talk to
Yeah.
them. I'm not in that mood. You know, it takes moment like the radio show or interview or something like that, where
Yeah.
I go, okay, now it's time to speak out my mind and just like feel the moment. But it's really interesting because I think that with the pandemic, a lot of people saw that it was not something hard for them to not see a lot of people and just like, oh, maybe I'm not that social.
It's true. Like it didn't. I missed it. The thing that's been the worst for aside from shows, and then obviously like all of the fallout from people getting ill and dying. Like for me personally, the most annoying thing has been just like having to think about everything I'm going to do. Like, should I do this? Is this safe? Like, what do I want to do? Because I work from home. My wife and I stay home. We don't fucking go anywhere. Like I'm just not. So it's not hasn't really been that different for me. And yeah, I think that when people, you know, they meet you at a show or whatever, not everyone, obviously, but some folks are just like, hey, this is totally awesome. And I'm just like, oh my God, my flight landed like 3 hours ago. I'm so tired. Like, thanks for coming. I just want to go to sleep. Like, I can't, you know, why are you partying? I'm like, I'm tired. I'm 46. I'm like, you know. So yeah, it is hard for people that come to shows have that show, and then the band has all of the shows. So it's like we have to make it to the end, not just the end of that one.
And that's another thing, you know, being drunk ass at 20 is not the same thing being drunk ass at your 40s. You know, it
No,
doesn't
it's not.
look good and it's not that cool, you know. And yeah,
No.
I just turned 40 and I celebrated my first month sober. Not that I'm drinking a lot, but just quit the booze, like, and I have so much more energy and yeah, I
Oh,
sleep
for
way.
sure. I quit drinking almost 10 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And I haven't, like, every once in a while, I will, like, think about, like, it'd be nice to have, like, a beer, like, a nice, whatever, kind of, like, pint of some expensive beer or whatever. But I never think to myself, man, I'd like to crush, like, 24 Labatt's right now because there's nothing but, like, it's just, you know, no thanks.
Yeah, and it's funny because Chuck from the Mad Caddies, when I did an interview with me, he said, you know, we were so involved, we were so into like cheap beers our skin was awful. Now, man, that I don't drink, I look way better.
Yep, it's true. It's just, and like you said, more energy and just like, you know, no judgment at all on anyone that still drinks, but I'm definitely like glad that I'm not super into drinking anymore.
Yeah, it's such a social thing that was
Mhm.
like it's so involved in people's mind that you have to drink if you go to a restaurant, you have to drink if you go to your friends. So it kind of, being a routine of doing it. And then when you quit, you realize I didn't need that. I'm having much fun. I'm like I said, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel
Yeah,
like today.
totally.
So, it's a weird question because, nobody really know where we're going right now. But I think that the worst of the pandemic, I think, is behind us. So what's gonna happen with the release? Is there a tour? How's gonna be with Hot Water Music?
Well, we have shows. We had shows scheduled this month that we postponed. But our first shows, we did shows. So we've done 6 shows since the pandemic. We did 4 in November, right before everything kind of like got crazy again, and then we did Fest all in October. So we got those, and Furnace Fest, so 7. We got through all those without any issues. Nobody got sick. We don't know, nothing, no fallout that we're aware of. And then we had like release shows or whatever leading up to everything in this yeah, well, last month, January. We moved those to the summer, but we have shows starting next Wednesday. Our hope was pretty much what's happening. We were like, if we can wait, like hopefully by February this wave is on down, which is kind of what happened to us in the fall when we did those shows. The Delta wave was coming down, so we were able to get out and do the shows without like everything being chaos. And at least here in the States, all the information we're getting is that the cases are dropping really quickly now. So we kind of made the decision that at this point, we just have to go play the shows. And like we can postpone forever, who knows how much
Yeah.
exactly. Like, so we're going for it. I mean, I'm pretty sure everywhere we're playing has, vaccine. You have to check for your card. Like some places still require masks and negative testing and everything. So as safe as possible. And then we're just fingers crossed. I mean, we're lucky in that we usually do shows like just on weekends. So we'll have 3 or 4 shows and then like a week or a month off before we do more shows. So on the off chance, I mean, this speaking for ourselves, like we can usually it's not like a band that has a 6-week tour and someone tests positive in the middle of the tour and then they have to cancel 10 shows and all. Like we usually, like everything's short enough that we're in and out and everything, like don't have to move anything or cancel anything. So that's kind of the goal. Is like, I agree with you. I feel like that hopefully the worst of it's over. And I also kind of feel like that people at large don't care anymore. And they're just like, it's done. We're going, like, it's fine. As soon as winter's over, everybody's out. So, that's hopefully it stays positive news moving forward. So yeah, that's the plan. The record comes out in 6 weeks about now. 6 or 7 weeks, comes out in March. And then we go on tour and we'll be in Canada, although not Quebec. Fingers crossed in April with Menzingers. And then like that's still on and still happening. And we don't have any plans of canceling anything that we have scheduled right now. Like everything from here on out is just going to go through and we'll hope that it happens. Like the funny thing, not the funny thing, but the weird thing that's happening a lot now is you'll have like a sold out show, but only half the people will show up because people are just like, I don't want to go, I'm not ready yet, or whatever. So it's like that's kind of the new, like, we're gonna go play shows and we have no idea how they're gonna go, because it's like, I think about it with me, I'm like, maybe I'll go out to lunch today, and then I'm like, nah, never mind, I'll stay home. So it's like just kind of like that all over the place now. So we're just looking forward to getting out and doing what we can do for everyone that shows up. So
You were born to do, and it's
yeah.
It's kind of funny, but at least people bought the ticket. So, people really want to encourage artists. I think people understood the importance of music in their life, not just live music, but just listening to music. And they want a lot of people like me as a music budget. So they put it to help the band. It was really beautiful. And, I think the local scene everywhere got more attention, which is pretty good. So,
Yeah, it's true. It's super cool that that's how the kind of one of the very cool like byproducts of this whole thing. And people have definitely been very supportive. Like we have sold more T-shirts in the last 2 years to people online than I can like. Where I'm like, I feel like everyone that likes our band definitely has a T-shirt now. So if we never sell another one again, I won't be surprised.
And they will wear it proudly, and we're gonna wait for you around Quebec. There was a huge love affair between Hot Music and Quebec. There's a
For
lot of
sure.
years, and I know Chuck is a huge fan because of our grandmother, which was Cajun, and she speaks
Mhm.
French and everything. So he's all 100% with us, French Canadian. So, man, have a time of your life with the release. It's gonna be released on Equal Vision Records on March. I'm a lucky bastard. I hear the most of it, and man, congratulations! It's your masterpiece.
Thanks.
After
Thank you
years,
very much. I appreciate that.
and man, I can't wait to shake hand in person if we can. I don't know at that point, or just it's gonna be really cool. And thank you for everything. You never forgot about Quebec. You always been here, and people love you. And thank you. Last time we met, you were so awesome, and I appreciate you're such rad human being. Behind the band. So thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Jason, before we leave, can you do us like a really simple ID, just saying, "Hi, this is," and you're listening to Prescription Punk Rock?
Yeah, for sure. You ready? Okay.
Yes.
Hey, this is Jason from Hot Water Music, and you're listening to Prescription Punk Rock.
Hell yeah, nail it in one time. How professional you are. Jason, thank you so much for your time. I really had a blast. We're going to do a huge special on Prescription Punk Rock. And like I said, I repeat myself, people go grab the records and catch them on tour. I will be there. Whenever is the date, I'm going to be there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And like me, let's get back to work from home.
I know, no doubt. All right.
Bye bye, Jason.
Bye bye.
Cheers.